So, hey, Tom, what's going to happen on the next Odd Shape panel?
Oh, well, I don't want to get into specifics, Eric, because I want to be able to reuse this ad whenever we can. But I know, looking at 2018, some of the things we already have looking forward to. Action movies we're going to talk about. We're also going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick, all of his films on future episodes. And, of course, pop culture discussion, as always, current news events. It would not be the same without our Pokemon Go correspondent.
Yeah,
That's you.
Yeah, I'll probably have some news at different points.
Yeah, and what else to look forward to but just hanging out with our friends and shooting the breeze on what's going on in all movies, TVs, comics, anything like that. If you haven't watched Odd Shape Panel, it's a call-in show. You're more than welcome to join the conversation, and we would love to have you.
Yeah, it's like you call in anytime. It doesn't matter where you are, when you are, who you are. Just call in.
It matters a little bit because it is every other Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we run for about 3 hours until we run out of people to talk to. Honestly, so come through if that sounds like something you're interested in. We'll see you there.
Kimber and a friend of Matthew Whitaker talking TV with their guests. Each picks a pilot of a series. It's a three-way, but it's not sex.
Welcome to TV Three-Way, the show that bridges the gap between Screen Mayhem and Odd Shape Channel. Today, our gang gets weird with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, rocks the party with Kiwi folk musicians Flight of the Conchords, and takes a look inside the nostalgic history of the toys that made us. I'm your host, Kimber Barrett from Odd Shape Channel, and as always, I'm joined by the host of Cinema Bushido from Screen Mayhem, my co-host Matthew Whitaker. How you doing today, Matt?
Excellent. Nice to be here as always.
Awesome. Our guest today is the host of It's a Wonderful Podcast and the Purpledon Enlightenment Hour. It's the Purpledon himself, Morgan Robinson.
Hello, very happy to be here, as of course I would be. Thank you for a beautiful intro.
Well, thank you, buddy. As usual, we're going to be discussing 3 shows today, the very first episodes of those 3 shows, and we're going to rate them from 0 to 10 on their bingeability and see which one fails to rise to the occasion and which show left us slightly sweaty and wanting more. So we usually start out with the guest, so Morgan, why don't you tell us what show you picked and what you like about that show?
Oh, well, thank you very much. I, of course, picked It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is, in my honest opinion, the funniest and best comedy show of all time of any country ever. The pilot of which I know we're going to be talking about. I'd say It's Always Sunny as a show doesn't hit its stride until season 3 for me. It's interesting to look back on that first season of 6 episodes, because you just get that feeling of they were just trying to come up with what was right for each character. Watching it back now, knowing what characters are like in later seasons, it's very weird because there's a lot of changes that were made that you didn't quite notice due to the sort of gradual, more sort of sociopathic nature of them. They are actually somewhat more normal in the opening, so that's quite an interesting thing, because I've not watched the pilot of It's Always Sunny for quite a while until I was asked to be on TV Three-Way. So it's always quite nice to go back and do that.
Yeah, they definitely established that these people are terrible in the first episode, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think it's sort of terrible in a kind of different way, or sort of in terms of each of the character. I don't think, like, Charlie especially is far less of an imbecile in the first season, let alone the first episode, than he is when you get really deep into it. I think all of them show signs of what their characters become, but obviously with it being so early on, they hadn't quite embraced or all that side to it, and because of course they didn't know what the audience's reaction would be. I suppose that has to be a thing you've got to go off as well.
And Matthew, I think you're coming from a little different perspective with this show. How did you feel about this pilot?
Well, I'd never seen it. I feel like I'd started one episode once. It was one about a property line through the building or something like that, and I didn't make it through the whole thing. So this one, I did like the first thing out of the gate that they're doing is like taking on, racism, homophobia, sexism, you name it. Pretty funny. I expected Danny DeVito, and he wasn't there. So I was like, okay. I just kept waiting for him to pop up. I'm like, oh, so maybe that's like something they threw in a little later to spice it up.
Yeah, DeVito only turns up at the episode 1 of season 2. There was originally no plans to put him in, but basically after they made the first season, they needed more funding to make the second season. Mm-hmm. DeVito came in.
They needed a good name
to do that, to get a big name and everything. And of course, the show blossomed with Danny DeVito, but that's why I say it doesn't quite hit its sort of perfection stride in the first season because DeVito isn't there yet.
Well, do you think I need to go and watch season 1 and season 2? Or do you think I could just jump in season 3 and start watching that and I'll have a better experience? I mean, this wasn't bad. I liked the characters. I think Charlie Day was pretty cool. Who's the other guy, I guess, based on the IMDb?
Yeah.
Rob. Rob was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And, and Caitlin, I like the characters. So I feel like they have a good foundation. But yeah, you think I could jump in on season 3, episode 1 and hit the ground running without too much confusion?
I mean, it's not exactly a plot heavy show, so there's no reason why not, but there are a certain, I think the beauty of It's Always Sunny is the way is almost in its side characters, and you do meet a lot of the side characters within the first season, or at least first couple of seasons, especially Frank, Danny DeVito. You would really need to get a lot of, or to get, quite a decent amount of laughs as you watch the series through as a whole. You do kind of need to know where it all starts, just because it offers more humour, basically, if you know the entire sort of horrible story of some of the secondary characters. The McPoyle twins, for instance, if you started watching season 3, and I think it's season 3, episode 3, where the gang try out for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the McPoyles are there with their entire sort of interbred family of weirdness. You wouldn't get that humour from the McPoyles if you hadn't already met them in like episode 5 of the first season.
Yeah, I feel like he could probably give you a list of like
Right.
important episodes to set you up. But I do think that the pilot kind of suffers from not having Danny DeVito. I think his character really adds a lot to the show and changes the dynamic between the characters. But I do think this was successful in establishing what type of characters you're dealing with, to the point where if you did choose to skip forward, you would know that like Dennis is vain and Charlie is like goofy and in love with the waitress. So they were successful with that part of this pilot.
That I completely do agree with that. It does. The series only really does get to its excellency once Danny DeVito is in there. But I found it funny again going back watching the first episode, in the fact that the waitress, because now having watched it for so long and being so knowledgeable about It's Always Sunny, the waitress to me is just a term I don't even think about where it comes from. The fact that she was actually a waitress in a coffee shop, that's just her character's name as far as I'm concerned now. But she was a waitress in a coffee shop, and the coffee shop, you think, watching the first episode, you think, oh, this coffee shop, it's going to be a regular place. No. I don't think they ever go back after the first one. I just think the waitress obviously turns up every now and again, just walking down the street or in another restaurant. But I almost get the feeling it's far more of a generic sitcom, especially with that idea of this coffee shop romance type thing that isn't happening. Like, it almost starts off like that between, you think Charlie and the waitress is going to be, I don't know, it's Always Sunny's version of Ross and Rachel or something like that, but it's just completely not, because it's just not a plot-driven show. It's a laughs-driven show and a character-driven show.
And it's funny because they are a couple in real life.
They are. They're a wonderful couple. Follow them on Instagram. It's delightful.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say about it, Matthew?
Oh, I'll say I feel like it was a successful pilot. It definitely made me more interested in seeing more of them. Like I said, versus the other episode, I may have just tuned into at one point or another, and I was kind of whatever. This time, you said it established the characters pretty well, and I think it set it up. So
yeah, I enjoyed watching this because it's been a while for me seeing this pilot. I definitely remember it when we started getting to the story, but they look like babies. They look so young because I think that it's like 2005 or something at this point. And
holy cow.
And also it's just so cringy. Like, it is so rough to watch. Like, it made my skin crawl, like the way these people behave. I don't even know what I would do if I was around actual people saying the things they were saying.
It was very cringy.
Whew.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Yeah, you just want to reach in and slap them. And I read that this was actually this was the second pilot. Like, they had a pilot. I guess Charlie Day and crew made their own, and it became the episode called Charlie Has Cancer or whatever. But this wasn't even like the pilot. This was like what Fox or FX or whoever it was said. We want you to make another one and make it, I guess, funnier or whatever, more edgy.
That's definitely edgy.
That original pilot was completely unaired. I think it might have even been made a bit earlier on, in like 2003 or something like that, by Rob McElhenney and the three of them, just for absolutely no money at all. But yeah, they do look worryingly young. Looking back on it now, and I'll go back and watch an episode of season 8 every now and again, season 6, random ones. But going that far back and just looking at how they look then and how they look now when we've finished season 13 is a shocking change.
Yeah, that's so much show. It's impressive. All right, so let's get into this. Just based on this pilot episode, with 0 being a box of hornets and 10 being kitten mittens, where would you, Morgan, rate this episode?
Well, that just made me laugh straight away. Kitten mittens, I love kitten mittens. Based off just the pilot, it's not a perfect score based off just the pilot. I'd still give it like a good 8, because I love how disgusting these people are, and that is why I love it so much, because they're wonderful to just laugh at what they do, because they're just so horrendous, and you do get that in every single episode, the first being no exception at all. So yeah, I'd say a solid 8. Not perfect. Once you get into season 2, then it gets right up there, though.
Awesome, thanks. And Matt, where are you at as a completely unbiased viewer?
I'd put it more around just in terms of bingeability, I'd put it more around a 6. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have like holy shit, I gotta get on to the next one. Like, there's a lot of things that determine bingeability, and there's definitely didn't have any kind of, oh, what's going to happen next kind of thing. It was just like, oh, that was good. Moving on.
Yeah, for sure.
I probably will watch another one, but I didn't feel I had to watch one right after again. I was like, satisfied.
Yeah, I feel like you get a bit of like, well, I know this show gets really good, so I want to watch more of them.
Right.
But yeah, if this was a cringeability score, it would be a 10 for me. But
I agree. You have to sit there and you're kind of side-eyeing it, going, "Oh, don't do that."
yeah,
Don't do that.
very much so.
The part in the waitress and the
Ugh.
black girl at the diner. Oh, fuck.
Really rough. But
Really.
as for the bingeability on just the very first episode by itself, I would have a hard time thinking that I would want to binge a show like this, just because it is so like rough to watch and cringy, and you almost like want to cover your eyes or like get these people some counseling or something. I would probably put it right in between you guys at a 7.
Okay.
So, like, interested, definitely understanding that it seems like a good show that's well written and clearly very funny, but do I want to sit down and watch 10 in a row? I'm not sure, so I'm going to give it a 7.
I once watched 3 seasons in one day.
I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah.
We all have those shows. Right now, I'm watching the Great British Baking
Love
Show,
those.
and I just can't stop. I can't stop watching
We gotta
them.
pick one of those one day, because that is, like, the crack of shows. So addictive.
It is crack.
Speaking of shows that I love that much, Matthew, why don't you tell us what show you picked? I was very excited because it is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I stole that right out of your greasy hands. Flight of the Conchords, episode 1, Sally. And this was right before they made the announcement that they were coming back with kind of a special, a 2-hour special or something like that. But yeah, Sally is really a great episode of Flight of the Conchords. You get 3 of their best songs: Not Crying, The Most Beautiful Girl in the Room, and Robots. And it's really a great plot. You know, the idea is there's a party, and because the lights are dim and everybody's drinking a little, Jermaine actually he doesn't hook up. He has a kebab and makes out with a girl. And
Splits a cab.
Somebody that Brett, and splits the cab. Somebody that Brett had dated before. So it's a really funny setup, and it leads to very good. It's really like a long music video with short comedy sketches in between. But I think it's perfect. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Morgan, where are you at with this?
I forgot how good the first episode of Flight of the Conchords was. It's so good. I love The Most Beautiful Girl. I love it as a song. It's so
it's so
perfect.
awesome.
And yeah, like, you know, as far as pilots go, it's a really strong way to get you interested in watching more of a show, definitely. I really love The Most Beautiful Girl. I think it's a perfect, hilarious comedy song. And as far as, you know, a first episode of a show goes, it's so good in terms of getting you interested in watching more of the show, because the humour is really infectious. Like, when you compare it to It's Always Sunny, where the characters are incredibly unlikable, and you're laughing sort of at them and what they do. Flight of the Conchords, you are completely laughing sort of with them and at what they say rather than how ridiculous they are. It's 2 very different styles of comedy, but I think they both work really well.
Absolutely. Like, you can't get more likable than these 2 guys, and I'm gonna say Murray
Of
as
course,
well. Like,
Murray.
Murray adds a lot.
Murray's the best.
The Most Beautiful Girl in the Room is just hilarious, whether you know the show or not. I used to sing it at karaoke, and it slayed every time. Doesn't matter if people knew the song or the show. If they did, they were extra excited. If not, they were laughing the whole time, just because it's universally funny, something like that. And the charm and charisma that both Brett and Jermaine bring to it by playing characters that aren't necessarily supposed to be charming or charismatic or funny is hilarious, because they totally are. And I love Brett McKenzie. He's like one of my major crushes for like the last 5 million years. I just think he's like one of the most adorable.
Your future husband looks a lot like
Yeah,
him.
you can see it with Tom. I have a type, yeah. And that guy likes Muppets, but that's a whole separate other story. These guys this was a great start to careers that really went somewhere for both of them. because Brett ended up later on writing the music for the Muppets movie and like winning like major awards. Like I think it was like an Oscar or something for the soundtrack of that. And Jermaine Clement did Moana and What We Do in the Shadows and all kinds of stuff. And I think if this show wasn't as good as it was, it wouldn't have opened those doors for them. And there's something that's so fresh about this show still, and it doesn't surprise me that they're coming back, and I think it's great timing, because these guys, it looks like you could have aired the show yesterday, and they still look like hipsters, and it's still, like, the comedy hasn't aged a day. It's just perfect. And,
yeah, can you believe this was 2007?
That's so crazy to me. Like,
it's crazy.
Like, this could have come on today and have been probably even more popular. If anything, it was probably a bit ahead of its time. And I love every bit of it. They are so adorable, and it brings back like the format of a show like the Tenacious D show from HBO, but with their own flavor. And like the New Zealand jokes and the accent jokes never get old to me. They're all just like so perfect, and the cast is wonderful. And I love Mel, their one fan. I feel I have to shout her out too. But like nearly everyone on the show has gone on to do other things, and I think that's because there's so many fans of this show out there who love it so much and, you know, want to seek out these talented, hilarious people to work with.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't see more Rhys Darby. I know he does stand up and stuff in New Zealand, but Murray was always one of my favorite, probably my favorite.
Did you see
it's hard
the X-Files he did?
No, I haven't yet.
It's awesome. You should watch that. It's from last season.
Okay, I'm on it, but yeah, he's a really great character. You know, he has these ideas of how the world should work, and it's so endearing. It's a fun one to follow, and you know, he's just so pathetic with his car, with the divorce and everything. It's just terrific.
Yeah, I love when he gets mad too.
Murray's my favorite character. Kimber, I think you're well aware that Murray is my favorite Flight of the Conchords character. I think. Because Kimber introduced me to Flight of the Conchords, for those who didn't know that fact.
When you were visiting.
When I was visiting. I immediately just, I don't know, latched onto Murray as a guy that I just love. Because he like you said, Matt, he is so just pathetic. And one of my favourite lines from this first episode was when they go and visit Dave to get the phone camera to film that music video.
Right.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I would have turned. Sorry, I couldn't make your party, Dave, but you know, I wasn't invited. It's just, yeah, it's fine. And then there's that, and that is it. And it's so wonderfully just deadpan and very, very dry. It is just...
Oh yeah, then straight on to the budget. What's your budget for this? Well, I didn't think we were going to be talking about budgets. Oh shit.
I'm looking forward very much to watching Swearwolves, or what's it, Werewolves, I think they're calling it. It's the spin-off from What We Do with the Shadows, and it stars Rhys Darby, who's like the leader of the werewolf gang. And I'm really hoping it does well, because he is so funny, and he's underappreciated, and he needs to be in more things, because the second we started talking about this show, I got a huge smile on my face. Like, this show is just like a beam of happiness and sunlight, and it makes me feel like so wonderful just talking about it. Nonetheless, like, watching it, which is always an interesting experience, and I have rewatched it many times, because, like, literally, if you're having a bad day, listen to any Flight of the Conchords song, and it'll make everything better.
I'm sure you both got to see Hunt for the Wilder People, right?
I haven't seen it yet, man.
You gotta see it. It's got he plays just a cameo kind of role, but he's Psycho Sam, and it's just so damn funny.
I believe
the world needs more restart.
Yes.
And Taika Waititi, and Taika Waititi did direct a couple episodes of Flight of the Conchords, and that's how I know who he is.
It's all crossed back together.
They're all the one group. I always sort of group them all together. Taika, Jermaine, Rhys Darby.
That's brilliant.
All the New Zealanders.
because they're all hilarious.
And they have
Oh,
that,
for
and they
sure.
have that gentler accent, versus those
It's-
fucking Australians.
It's
Oh,
an
yeah.
incredible accent. I love the New Zealand.
Yeah, I
love
like
the
it
New
too.
Zealand accent.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say about Murray before we move on. My favorite line in that entire show is when Murray says something about the king of the dicks. Like, he's just, it's so perfect. Like, when he gets mad, it's the funniest thing in the world to me because he is such, like, a sweet character. So when he's calling people dicks and stuff, like, it really kills me. It slays me.
It's awesome.
Sorry.
All right, well, let's get into this. If 0 is Brett quitting the band again, and 10 is like a curry, where would you, Matthew, rate the show?
I've never done this before, but this is a 10. This is one. I mean,
Ooh.
yeah, I've never actually rated a 10. I've said I don't know what would be a 10, but these I remember when they were coming out, and I just couldn't wait for the next one. And right after I finished this, I started the next one, and I'm like, I don't have time for this shit. But I wanted to. I want to rewatch them all, like right now. Bingeability.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
And Morgan, how about you?
Okay, don't kill me. It's a very bingeable show, and I like it a lot. I think because I'm just comparing this to It's Always Sunny too much right now. Compared to It's Always Sunny, the style of humour that is It's Always Sunny makes me want to watch more of that more than the style of humour of Flight of the Conchords makes me want to watch more of that. So I'll put it one less at a 7 for Flight of the Conchords.
Wow.
I'm
That is
sorry.
harsh. Because Morgan gave it such a low score, and I feel like there's got to be a new rule on the show, like if I have a tattoo for a show, then they get a 10, because I do in fact have a Rhymenoceros versus Hippopotamus tattoo.
Holy shit, is this about to happen?
Yes, it's a 10 for me.
I didn't.
This show is amazing, and I will probably watch it at least a dozen more times in my life, and it's aging like a fine wine, and it's perfection, and Brett McKenzie, so 10.
I didn't give it a 2.
It felt like
I'm
it.
sorry.
It felt like
I've
it.
let
You
everyone
punched it
down.
right in the gut. Jermaine is crying. It hasn't been raining on his
Right?
face.
Nice. Well, we do have one more show today, and that's my choice. You guys, it was really interesting talking about It's Always Sunny and Flight of the Conchords back to back, because they are very different yet similar shows in a way. This one is something completely different from those, and I chose The Toys That Made Us on Netflix. This is kind of like a documentary show, and each episode they did was about different toys, Barbies, He-Man, etc. And the first episode was about Star Wars. So I really enjoyed this a lot. I just found it really interesting, and of course, like, I have tons of Star Wars toys, and so getting to know all this history of how they came about, and like seeing like man making a Jawa's little robe out of his sleeve and stuff, like it was all just really cool and a different experience. Just even looking at my toys at this point, and toys are something that I've always had a fixation on and an interest in, so to have a documentary, which I like, about toys, which I love, it just made my day. Like, I binged the whole show in one sitting, because even if it was about Barbies or something, it was just really interesting getting the backstory and the behind the scenes of how these things that we all have in our house, for the most part, where they come from, and the history of them and how they're made. What did you think about it, Morgan?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It was really interesting. Obviously we're all sort of collectors of things to a point, and Star Wars toys, I'm sure literally every known human being has got at least one Star Wars toy or collectible somewhere. I think it was the perfect sort of starting topic in like Star Wars. I think if it had have started with one of the other ones, because I know there's a Barbie one. I think was there a Masters of the Universe one as well? Or
Yeah,
He-Man
I
or
think
whatever
there
that
was.
And was it G.I. Joe, I think the
Yes.
other one was. Like, I feel like sort of He-Man and G.I. Joe are a very sort of only one generation type thing, if you know what I mean, that's before me. So I don't think I necessarily would have loved those episodes as much as I did enjoy the Star Wars one, because Star Wars is this big, multi-generational, biggest thing ever type deal. But yeah, it is really, really interesting to know where, you know, just the little sort of ridiculous ways some Star Wars toys were designed, were actually made out of these really sort of very, very cheap pieces of plastic, but they're so well loved by people, and they sell for a lot of money if you have the right one. Mm-hmm. Like, they were talking about the what was it, the rocket shooting Boba Fett that was selling for like tens of thousands of dollars and stuff, and because there was only like 7 of them.
They would never even think to make something like that nowadays. There's too many rules. They're worried about, you know, kids choking and stuff, and that's because, like, toys like this choked kids. And then that's just really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice when you learn that the reason they didn't make them was because children were choking on Boba Fett's rockets, which is nasty. And but it is really, really interesting, and I think it was a great, like I said, a great topic to start the show on, purely because Star Wars is bigger than literally everything else, apart from, like, Disney at this point.
But let me tell you,
Disney.
like, when I tell you that the other episodes are really interesting, whether you're interested in G.I. Joe or Barbie or not, they are equally as interesting. Like, you just learn so much that you wouldn't have even thought about, especially if it's about toys that you weren't, you know, necessarily buying or interested in. So it's a really cool show. Matt, how did it make you feel?
Oh, I did not enjoy this film at all.
Oh,
this
no.
show. Yeah, it annoyed the shit out of me. What I really liked is what you guys brought up, the actual backstories of the toys and seeing the collectors and understanding the rarities. All of that stuff, like the actual content of the documentary was good, but it was the way they delivered it. It just annoyed the hell out of me. The way they did the cuts in certain people's interviews in order to create humor and stuff like that. I just feel like the documentary filmmakers failed me hardcore, where the actual story itself was just so good. Like, if I could have had it delivered to me differently, it would have been completely different. You brought up the sock. I mean, just brilliant stuff that you never know, and it gives you a whole different perspective. But I couldn't watch another one. I was just like, screw you guys. I had trouble getting through this one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you like the theme song? I felt like the theme song kind of reminded me of our theme song that Tom did.
Yeah, it's true, and I did, and I actually like the whatever drawing style they used for the characters in the intro. It's kind of like that weird 80s cartoon thing. That was pretty clever. No, it was really just the way they use music. It was almost like watching like pop-up video or something like that. Like they were trying to be too clever with the way they put it together. And I don't know. It didn't work for me at all. That said,
wow. So like the editing and the directing is what failed you?
Yeah. Like, I mean, because I really enjoyed, like, it would just pull me out. I'm like listening to this gentleman. There's one scene, for example, he's talking about what it takes to create a toy, and he's talking about, you know, the process of having to build the model and then, you know, go back and do this, and he's explaining it, and they cut it up, so they just chopped the film into like 5 different segments of him saying, and then you have to go do this again, and then they chopped it, and then they said, and then you have to go do this, versus just letting the guy talk naturally, and it was just jarring to me. I was just, anyway.
Yeah, that's a shame. I guess I didn't notice that as much. Now I'm going to be bothered when I go back, because I think they are doing more.
You'll have to tell me what
more
you
episodes.
think when you watch another one, and you'll see that they're like trying to add humor through video editing or something, and it hit me in the wrong way. That's for sure.
Do you think that's like a product of like ADD culture and like trying to have a young audience interested?
You got it. Yeah, you just summed up. That's what they're trying to do. They couldn't just give us the history, which I mean, I've watched lots of documentaries, and it's okay. I mean, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any edits or anything like that, but it was you said it, they're trying really hard to make it snappy, as they want to keep people's attention, and in doing that, it did get my attention, but it took my attention away from the actual content of the show.
So, like, it's probably like some old guys in a boardroom trying to stay hip.
Totally. Yeah,
Morgan, you're young. How did you notice that, or did you find it distracting?
I'm with you. I did not really notice any sort of weird style of filmmaking. Maybe I should go back and watch some of the other ones now, just to see if I pick up on that. Actually,
I wonder if we were just blinded by how interested in the information they were delivering to us.
I was probably definitely blinded by the amount of Star Wars toys. To be perfectly honest, I think they did well in doing that.
And the crazy history. Like right when I saw Boba Fett pop up, I'm like, holy cow, I had one of those. And then they're of course like, and these were never released to the public. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I didn't. Memory's a tricky thing. Like I had a bunch of those toys in the 80s, and I would have sworn I had the one that shot the rocket, but no, I know for certain now I did not indeed have that at all.
If you did, you could sell that now for lots of money.
Right. Like maybe
a small
I did.
fortune.
Yeah.
And Morgan, I wanted to ask you specifically, because I know you're a huge Tarkin fan.
Yes.
Did you find it disappointing when they talked about that's the only character that didn't get an action figure?
I knew that fact anyway, and it has constantly disappointed me since Tarkin became my favourite Star Wars character. I'd also like to bring up the fact that Tarkin doesn't apparently have a Funko Pop either.
Mm-hmm.
He really gets the short straw, Tarkin, and I will not stand for it any longer. Makers of Star Wars toys, make a goddamn Tarkin figure so I can display it, please.
Nice.
There's the call out.
I think we've pretty much said what we need to say with this show. So let's go ahead and rate it. If 0 is a Star Swar knockoff action figure, and 10 is a coveted rocket-firing Boba Fett, where would you rate the show, Matt?
I'm not going to just dump on it, because if there is another one that has a toy in it, like you said you were interested in the stories behind most of them, but if there was something in there, and I haven't looked at the list of, there were only 4 episodes the first season, and I know there's supposed to be 8 total, but if they have another one that's about a toy I'm really interested in, I might sit down and try it again. So I'm going to go with a 5.
Interesting. And what toy would they need to do to lure you in?
Well, I don't know. Like, did they ever make, like, Firefly toys? I don't know. Something like that. Something that really juicy would suck me back in and make me put up with their crap. just to get the goods. But, yeah.
I'd personally love a Funko Pop vinyl one because they are so massive of a success.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to see how that went about. Morgan, where would you put this show?
I think I'm kind of more on Matt's side here. Like, I think I definitely liked the show more than Matt did, but where I come down on it is that in a very similar way to Matt, if there is another episode on a series of toys that I would be more interested in than the other 3, like, say, stuff that I had as a kid, like Hot Wheels or Lego or something like that, I would watch another one of those. I mean, I'm going to give it, like, a 6, just because I think it I do think, at least for me, I don't know if I'm being far too close-minded about this, and I'm sorry if I am, but to me, it seems like if I'm not interested in, like, that toy, or have no knowledge of the whole business behind, like He-Man or G.I. Joe or Barbie, then I'm not really gonna get as much out of that as I am in an episode where I do actually have some sort of context to go off.
Yeah, that's understandable. For me, I picked this show for a reason, and that was that I really enjoyed it, and Matthew has me, like, double thinking, like, did I just, like, ignore the annoying parts? So I'll have to check that out later and see if I, in fact, did ignore the annoying parts. But where I'm at right now with it is that I really enjoyed this. I watched all the episodes, even though, like, Barbies or something is not, you know, I don't collect Barbies. I played with Barbies when I was a kid, but that's mostly because I'm a girl, and that's what people would give you at the time. But I'm gonna put this one at an 8. I do think it was interesting, and I do think it was good, and I'm looking forward to the other 4 episodes from this. So it's an 8 for me, but I think we pretty much have a pretty clear winner on this episode.
Yeah.
And it was Flight of the Conchords, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Brett and Jermaine.
Yes, and I don't think that's surprising with the 3 of us on the show today, because we all do like that show a lot, and particularly with, like, I introduced Morgan to that show. Me and Matt have talked about that show before and our appreciation of it, and it really just is kind of this, it's like a time capsule and timeless at the same time, which is really hard to do. And I feel like, especially if you're more me and Matthew's age, it really, like, epitomizes, like, hipsters of our time period, and that's really effective, and it makes me nostalgic for it, even though it's not that old of a show. So it generates complex feelings of happiness, and I feel like that makes any show successful. So Flight of the Conchords, yay!
Well, I'll throw up. I just was looking up what the next episodes would be, and I didn't get a full list, but the next episode of The Toys That Made Us is Hello Kitty, so it's going to be Sanrio toys, and I collected those for a ton of time because of my kid. So I'd be very interested in the history of some of the Sanrio stuff. And so I may just pick it up.
I like Sanrio stuff. I will definitely watch that.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you guys for listening to us, as always, whether you're listening to us on iTunes and know us from Screen Mayhem, or if you're a new viewer and you're coming in from Odd Shape Panel or Odd Shape Channel. Just thank you guys so much, and be sure to support Screen Mayhem and Odd Shape Channel. And Matthew, you want to tell us where we can find you and what you've been working on recently?
Yes, indeed. You can find me at Evil Twin Ghost on Twitter. That's the main spot where I post most of the stupid thoughts in my head. But otherwise, you can find our content at screenmayhem.com, and you can see Cinema Bushido, Action, Cinema Podcast, the Clones Cast, which is a bit of a Bruce Lee fanaticism. You can find things there like Let's Get Stuck Into, where we're right now doing Studio Ghibli, and we just finished When Marnie Was There and Howl's Moving Castle, so all of those are coming up within the next few weeks.
Awesome, looking forward to that. How about you, Morgan? What are you working on?
Well, as always, just follow me on the Twitters at the Purpledon with a 3 instead of the E in the Purpledon on YouTube, and follow It's a Wonderful One on Twitter as well to see when all the episodes of my new show with Nolan Dean breaking down pre-1960 films, because no one's talking about those and people should be. That's a new show that we're doing, so yeah, follow at It's a Wonderful One on Twitter to see when all the new episodes of that go up.
Awesome, and yeah, for sure, check that out. Nolan's great, and I'm really interested to see what you guys are going to be doing over there. You know me, I'm from Odd Shaped Channel, several of the shows. You can catch us on Odd Shaped Panel, which is every other Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, doing call-in shows where we talk to you guys. So if you want to give us a ring there, you can absolutely do that. You can catch me on the upcoming season of Fan Friction for the Tough Channel, where I am currently still the reigning champion. So if you want to try to take the belt from me, go ahead, and good luck with that. Next week, not next week, but next show, we are going to be welcoming Ashley Davis, who does in fact write for Screen Mayhem and has her own channel, Add Geek to My Nerd. So we're really looking forward to that, and we hope you guys will join us then. For now, I'm Kimber Barrett, and have a good week. I'm so awkward.
Kimber and a friend of Matthew Whitaker talking TV with their guests. Each picks a pilot of a series. It's a three-way, but it's not sex.